All right, we are in 2 Kings chapter number 15. And it is good to be able to be back here. I know we've had a lot of things going on, and sickness and good old snow. And I know probably most all of the youngins would wish we'd have snow every day for a while, but I know Julian would. That morning or that night after it had snowed, Julian climbed up on the couch beside Sonia and said, "Grammy, that snow was beautiful." And he loved it, but Lord have mercy.
I wish I could be in Georgia with you.
Yeah, I imagine.
You could too, baby.
Yeah.
But you wanted to go home.
But we have several kings that we're going to look at here, and we're going to see a lot of the same thing just over and over and over. And then we're going to talk about that. What can cause these kind of things. And but we're going to begin here, and several of the kings of Judah were kings that did that was right in the sight of God. Although they didn't do completely all that God wanted, they still were considered good kings because they wanted to serve God. So, and they were following partially, I guess you could say, the example that David had set once he got his life straightened out and he started, he wanted God to restore unto him the joy of his salvation, and he asked God to forgive him, and he began to be the king that God wanted him to be. So, but beginning in verse 1 of chapter 15, in the 27th year of Jeroboam, king of Israel, began Azariah, son of Amaziah, king of Judah, to reign. 16 years old was he when he began to reign, and he reigned 52 years in Jerusalem, and his mother's name was Jecoliah of Jerusalem. So, we have when Jeroboam was king of Israel, and now Jeroboam was not a good king for Israel. But now we're looking at Azariah, who was the king of Judah, and it says he was 16 years old when he began to reign. So he's a young man, but that's not the youngest that we've seen up to this point. We saw one really young, was about 6 or 7 years old or so. And but he was 16 years old, so he had a little bit more knowledge of maybe how to do, but he still had to have somebody to help him, no doubt. He was blessed because he reigned 52 years in Jerusalem. And we shared the last time we were here that when they're listing the mothers' names, it's because, these kings are trying to do that's best for the people, and, really it would put shine a bad light on the mothers instead of the fathers if the king didn't do good. So, but we've seen a few thus far that where they've listed the mother's names of that child. So, and the very next verse shares with us, and he did that which was right in the sight of the Lord, according to all that his father Amaziah had done. So, he was following the example that had been set before him from his father. And, we need to set those kind of examples before children, whether they're our children or not. We've got to have a desire to help everybody, no matter whose child they are. But we should be living that kind of an example before every child, that they might see Jesus Christ in us. They may see things that we might do wrong or whatever, but there's none of us perfect. But if we'll live as close as we can to Jesus Christ and let them see that example, you know what? Some of that's going to rub off on them. Here, Azariah had saw what his father Amaziah had done, and he followed that. But he was still, he did that was right in the sight of the Lord, but he was still coming up just a little short. And it shares in verse 4 that save that the high places were not removed, the people sacrificed and burnt incense still on the high places. So, he didn't have those altars to idols torn down, which they should have. But quite possibly, not everybody was running up there and offering incense to these idols. But there were some, because it says that they were still offering offerings on these altars to these idols. And that's something that God hates. Even today, we serve the same God. We serve a jealous God. We serve a God that wants us to put our whole attention, everything about us, in Him. That's what He desires. But now if we don't, we may still do some things that's right in the sight of the Lord. But you know what? If we're leaving this out, which, Azariah had saw the example from his father, so, it's kind of, I thought about this afternoon as I was reading this chapter. I've read it several times since the first time we were going to do this chapter. But I thought about this, how that, a lot of times we follow traditions in our families. And, he had seen the example of his father, but I thought about this that I'd heard years ago. This young lady had gotten married and she was going to cook a ham, and she went to her mom and she asked her mom and said, "Why don't you cut the end off of the ham and cook it in a separate pot?" She said, "I don't know. You have to go ask your granny. I do the same thing." So she went and asked her granny, and her granny said, "I did that just because I didn't have a pot big enough to cook it in." So sometimes we follow tradition, because it's things that we've seen. And until we question that, why do we do it this way? You may not ever know. You might just keep following in that line. So, and I thought about that. Really, with several kings here, we're going to see some of the same thing. And we're going to read more about all these kings when we get to 1st and 2nd Chronicles. So, and we'll see that as we go through. But, and it says, because of this, look what happens to him. Maybe he did question that tradition of leaving those altars. The Bible doesn't say, but look what God did. And I don't see where he did that to any others that, that was listed as doing that was right in the eyes of the Lord, but yet they didn't tear down those altars to idols. This is what happened. The Lord smote the king so that he was a leper unto the day of his death, and dwelt in a several house, or an infirmary. And Jotham, the king's son, was over the house, judging the people of the land. So, maybe he did question that. Maybe he did realize, hey, those things need to be torn down. And he didn't do it. And look what God did. God caused him, God doesn't do anything evil. God allowed that leprosy to come on this man because of leaving that off, not tearing it down, not moving those things out of the way. Now Israel, the kingdom of Israel with their king, they were serving big golden calves still. From the time right after Ahab had died, before Jezebel died. Their son built those big, huge golden calves and set them up because he didn't want them going down to Jerusalem. But he said, if they go down there, they may talk their folks into staying down there, and they're going to come back and kill me. So, they kept serving those golden calves. So, but maybe this man, I don't know. We'll find out. I'm sure we're going to find out when we get to either 1st or 2nd Chronicles. So, but and we're going to leave that there. So I don't know if anybody's read ahead or not, but I like to read ahead sometimes. So I'm going to just hush, because I'll get way ahead of myself if I don't. But he says, and the rest of the acts of Azariah and all that he did, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the kings of Judah, the history? And I love history. So we're going to get into more of history in, these books, 1 Samuel, 2 Samuel, 1 Kings, 2 Kings, 1 Chronicles, 2 Chronicles. All those are history. And I like that. It gives a lot of different things that happened during the time of the growth of Israel, and their kings, which God had told them they didn't need. So Azariah slept with his fathers, and they buried him with his fathers in the city of David, and Jotham his son reigned in his stead. So, he was in an infirmary because, of his leprosy. A leper couldn't be out amongst all the people. He had to be checked by the high priest to see. And if it was, if the leprosy wasn't white, he had to be separated. But if it was white, if it had turned white, it was no longer contagious. If it was white, they could be amongst the people, but, how many people would want to be around somebody or hug up to them that's got leprosy that's turned white? They're probably thinking, maybe there's something there that might give me, they're probably still going to stay their distance. But he was in an infirmary. And, his son was already kind of looking after things. And now that he's died, his son becomes king, Jotham. So, now we're going to look at the next king. And then I'm going to share something when we get through all these kings right here in this one chapter. So, and now we're going to look at Israel. In the 38th year of Azariah, king of Judah, did Zechariah, the son of Jeroboam, reign over Israel in Samaria 6 months. He's not reigning very long, 6 months. This is in the 38th year of Azariah. Is when he becomes king, the son of Jeroboam. And he did that which was evil in the sight of the Lord, as his fathers had done. He departed not from the sins of Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, who made Israel to sin. So that's a key part right there. We're going to see that several times. They followed the ways of Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, who had made Israel to sin. Now, that's sad. Out of all the kings, and did everybody get one of these last week? It gives the kings, and it shares, the good ones, the bad ones, all that kind of stuff. All the kings of Israel were bad, every one of them. Every one of them were ones that did evil in the sight of the Lord. That's sad. They're God's chosen people. But look at where they're at. But, I think about, too, what Paul said in the book of Romans, I believe, where it's at. He shared that not all the people who claim to be Israel are of Israel. These people were Jewish, but they were not the true Jews. And the reason is they were following the ways of the world. But not all of them, because I find God's word says that amongst his people there was always a remnant that was serving him. Might be a small amount. A remnant sometimes is not much. I remember working at Nashville Textile. Sometimes the remnant cloth we'd sell to a place in Laredo, Texas. And, that's right on the border with Mexico, and they'd take anything. Didn't matter if it was a half a yard, whatever. If it was on a spool, they'd take it. And so, remnant can be a small amount compared to, but they just keep following the evil ways. And the ways of Jeroboam was to worship these golden calves. And Shallum, the son of Jabesh, conspired against him and smote him before the people and slew him and reigned in his stead. Now, you know, we've all heard of the prayer of Jabez, and, you know, this is a different Jabez. But, so I didn't want us to get that confused, which we probably wouldn't, but this has been a long time since Jabez, the prayer of Jabez. But, you know, and see, you know, they're doing evil, so, you know, other folks who would like to be king, that's in their lineage, you know, they didn't mind killing one another. I'm gonna be king. I'm tired of him being king. He's only king 6 months. Wipe him out. You know, just snuff him out and be done with him. I'm gonna be king for a while. So, Shallum, the son of Jabez, smote him, killed him. You know, he smote him before the people, so he struck him with something. I have no idea what. He might have struck him with a hatchet, an axe, or a club, or whatever. You know, but he killed him right before the people. You know, and you know, he must not have been a very likable king, because it doesn't say they did anything about it. You know, he was killed right there before the people. And Shallum reigned in his stead. And the rest of the acts of Zechariah, behold, they are written in the book of the Chronicles of the Kings of Israel. So, you know, we're going to see more of these folks. This was the word of the Lord, which he spake unto Jehu, saying, Thy son shall sit on the throne of Israel unto the 4th generation. And so it came to pass. And so, you know, God fulfills what he shares. That's what he had told Jehu. To the 4th generation of your seed will sit on the throne. And that's what had taken place. So, verse 13. And Shallum, the son of Jabez, began to reign in the 9th and 30th year of Uzziah. And Uzziah is the same name as Azariah. It's just, you know, we saw some differentiations with a name here 2 or 3, 4 weeks ago. And I was trying to think, I should have looked it up. But anyway, you know, Uzziah is the same as Azariah. So, but Shallum, the son of Jabez, began to reign in the 9th and 30th year of Uzziah, king of Judah. And he reigned a full month in Samaria. So he's taken the life of some of his kinfolks to become king. He's only going to reign a month. He's not going to get a whole lot done. You know, he might have had some good feasts and this kind of stuff and done a lot of evil stuff in that month, but he ain't going to be there but a month. For Menahem, the son of Gadi, went up from Tirzah and came to Samaria and smote Shallum, the son of Jabez, in Samaria, and slew him and reigned in his stead. He had a whole month. The rest of the acts of Shallum and his conspiracy, you know, because he had conspired to kill the other king, which he made, behold, they are written in the book of the Chronicles of the king of Israel. We're going to hear that a bunch of times before we get to the end of this chapter. And, you know, you have to, you know, do you ever think about these things that we read here? And I love to read about history. I mean, these things interest me, and I'm glad they do. But do you ever think, why in the world did God have this pinned down? But you know what? God had this, and we're going to share this in just a few minutes. I want to get through before I say anything about it. But, you know, God had this pinned down for a reason. It's for an example for us. So it's important. If it was not important, we wouldn't be reading these little short segments about different kings. We wouldn't be reading about a king that stayed a month. But they're important. You know, we don't ever need to conspire to kill anybody, you know, or to do any kind of evil. Because it can come back to haunt you fairly quickly. Just look what happened to him. A month's time, he's out the door. They burying him. You know, it didn't last long. So, but now we have another king of Israel. Then Menahem smote Tiphsah and all that were therein, and the coast thereof from Tirzah, because they opened not to him. Therefore he smote it, and all the women therein that were with child he ripped up. Now, does that sound like he might have done what was right in the eyes of God? No. I mean, he's killing these pregnant women because they just didn't open up the city to him. They didn't say, hey, welcome in. So he's killing them. How sad, how mean, how evil that is. You know, there's people today that, you know, I saw yesterday or maybe this morning, the folks, they were from Michigan or somewhere, that had killed the 4-year-old son and had tortured him and killed him. They caught him in Lake Park. And, you know, people are evil today, I'm telling you.
They were holding a trial or a hearing today and all down there to see if they were going to be extradited back
Extradite them back, yeah.
to Michigan.
So, I mean, it's sad. But look what this man's done. He's evil. He's let Satan overtake him. You know, he gets so upset. He's killing the pregnant ladies. In the 9th and 30th year of Azariah, and that's the same as Uzziah, king of Judah, began Menahem, the son of Gadi, to reign over Israel and reign 10 years in Samaria. So, you know, we're seeing a couple of kings come in there in the 39th year because they're killing them off so quick, you know, so. And he did that which was evil in the sight of the Lord. He departed not all his days from the sins of Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, who made Israel to sin. Now, you know, Jeroboam is dead and gone. Now, just think about that. How is he still making Israel to sin? You know, just think about that, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But, you know, we're going to hear that again. But, you know, this king was evil, mean, wicked, doing some of the most ungodly things. And Pul, the king of Assyria, came against the land. And Menahem gave Pul 1,000 talents of silver, that his hand might be with him to confirm the kingdom in his hand. And I know everybody's Bible may have a different amount. Mine says that 1,000 talents of silver was equal to about $384 million. Yeah, that's a pile of money back in those days. Ever how much it was, 1,000 talents of silver, that was a pile of money. A pile of money. So, which $384 million is a pile of money today, but, you know, it would have sure bought a whole lot more back in the days of Menahem than it would today. So Pul, the king of Assyria, so he goes, but now where is he going to get all this money from? Where's he going to get all this silver from? You know, Israel is not a poor group of people. And he knows that. And Menahem exacted or took the money of Israel, even all the mighty men of wealth, of each man 50 shekels of silver to give to the king of Assyria. So the king of Assyria turned back and stayed not there in the land. So, you know, hey, I'm not going to pay it. All you rich folks out, you give me, you're paying it. Give me your silver. You know, and he had every one of them to give 50 talents of silver to pay this 1,000 talents of silver. You know, this man is nothing but evil. You know, to ward off being overtaken by the Assyrians, he's going to pay them off. You And when he gets up the money and he gives this, it's kind of like a ransom. He gives it to him, so Pul goes back to Assyria. He leaves the land. He says, I don't mind taking your money. Hey, I'll be back.
He's a tax collector.
Yeah.
All the money.
So, but, this is about all we hear of Menahem, until we get to Chronicles. And the rest of the acts of Menahem and all that he did, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the king of Israel? And Menahem slept with his fathers, and Pekahiah, his son, reigned in his stead. And I've often wondered, where do they come up with all these names? Pekahiah.
How'd they learn to spell them?
Which, yeah. Which their pronunciation was probably a lot different than mine. But, look at the evil that's going on. And we've seen it in a few chapters here since Jeroboam, how that they're following the ways of Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, and all the evil that he did. They're following that way. They're following that example. Why couldn't they have found a better example to follow? Well, it's what they kept seeing over and over and over and over. And I guess they felt it was all right. Hey, I can be a little more wicked than, we read several chapters back that, from one king to the next, it would share with us that this king was more evil than all the ones before him. That's pretty bad. So, but now Pekahiah, and in the 50th year of Azariah, king of Judah, Pekahiah, the son of Menahem, began to reign over Israel and Samaria, and reigned 2 years. So, he is at least going to make it to the end of Azariah's reign in Judah. And he's going to reign 2 years, and Azariah reigned 52 years. So, and this is in the 50th year that he comes in. And he did that which was evil in the sight of the Lord. There we see that again. And, we can see right there on the paper I gave you, every king of Israel was bad. Not one good king. But if you look at Judah, there weren't a lot of good kings in Judah. But that's the way the ball bounces sometimes. But he did that which was evil in the sight of the Lord. He departed not from the sins of Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, who made Israel to sin. Again, think about that. How could he still make Israel to sin? They just keep following that same pattern. But Pekah, the son of Remaliah, a captain of his, conspired against him, and smote him in Samaria in the palace of the king's house with Argob and Ariah, and with him 50 men of the Gileadites, and he killed him and reigned in his room. So here Pekah is going to take Pekahiah's place. He's going to kill him after 2 years. And the rest of the acts of Pekahiah and all that he did, behold, they are written in the book of the Chronicles of the kings of Israel. So, we're going to see more and more of these same kings as, we go on through to 1st and 2nd Chronicles. And now we're going to look at Pekah. In the 52nd year of Azariah, king of Judah, Pekah, the son of Remaliah, began to reign over Israel and Samaria, and reigned 20 years. So he's going to reign a little longer than a month, and a little bit longer than 2 years, and he's going to have him a little time here. But look, with time, with them being so mean and wicked, he did that which was evil in the sight of the Lord. He departed not from the sins of Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, who made Israel to sin. You know, how sad. It's just like a repeated process, just over and over and over and over. In the days of Pekah, king of Israel, came, and these names here are hard to pronounce, Tiglath-Pileser, king of Assyria, and took Ijon and Abel-Beth-Maachah and Genoa and Kadesh and Hazor and Gilead and Galilee, all the land of Naphtali, and carried them captive to Assyria. So, you know, here the king of Assyria comes. We've got a new king, Tiglath-Pileser. He's going to come. He's going to take the whole tribe of Naphtali, and he takes them captive, and he carries them back to Assyria. And Hoshea, the son of Elah, made a conspiracy against Pekah, the son of Remaliah, and smote him and slew him, and reigned in his stead in the 20th year of Jotham, the son of Uzziah. So, and Uzziah is Azariah. Jotham was the next king of Judah. And the rest of the acts of Pekah and all that he did, behold, they are written in the book of the Chronicles of the king of Israel. I can't wait till we get to 1st and 2nd Chronicles to see what else is written about these people and their evil deeds and the things that, it'll give us maybe a better view of why they were listed as doing that which was evil in the sight of the Lord. We saw with one, he's killing all the ladies who were expecting children. That's pretty wicked. That's bad. Not only was he killing one person, he was killing two people. So, that's sad. But, all their things that they did are recorded. And, I think about that, and you know what? All the things that we do are recorded. There's a song. I think we have some of the old Mulls hymnals here somewhere. I don't know if they're packed up somewhere. They're a red hymnal, little red paperback. And in that book, there's a song, My Lord Keeps a Record. That's a pretty song. I love that song because he does keep a record of the things we're doing down here. The things these kings did, the evil that they did, or with Judah, the good that they did, whatever it was, there was records kept of those things. And God had a reason for that. Now we're looking at, in this chapter, the last king in this chapter, which is the king of Judah, the reign of Jotham. In the 2nd year of Pekah, the son of Remaliah, king of Israel, began Jotham, the son of Uzziah, king of Judah, to reign. 25 years old was he when he began to reign, and he reigned 16 years in Jerusalem, and his mother's name was Jerusha, the daughter of Zadok. So, again, Jerusha, his mother, she's listed here because, it would bring honor or it would bring disgrace. And these kings are bringing honor to their mother, because the mother was responsible in this time period. The mother was really responsible for the raising of the children. And then, it would either put a bad light on her or a good light on her with whatever their children did. It would reflect maybe somewhat of how they were raised. But now, you can't look at children, even today, you can't look at how a child was raised. you know, you can do all you can do to raise your children right and teach them right and have them in church every Sunday. That don't mean when they get old enough that they won't turn away from that. You know, but, you know, like I've shared before, one thing I know about Scripture, if we've taught them about Jesus Christ, if we've shared with them about how important it is to live for Him, and tried to teach them those things, God says they might depart from it, but when they get old, they're going to come back to it. They're going to remember those teachings. So we have Jotham, who's began to reign, and he's going to reign 16 years. And he did that which was right in the sight of the Lord. He did according to all that his father Uzziah had done. So, you know, he's following that example again. But he's still considered a good king. Even though the very next verse, howbeit the high places were not removed. The people sacrificed and burned incense. Still, in the high places, he built the higher gate of the house of the Lord. So, you know, he didn't go and tear down the altars and things to idols. Even though he's considered, again, a king that did that was right in the sight of the Lord. You know, he did try to point people, and he tried to be the example before people that would lead them to God. But he left that one thing. But now, here in these scriptures, I don't see anything that happened to him like the other king that became a leper. And you might wonder why. You know, sometimes I wonder, why is one king this way and another? You know, according to what the Bible says, their reign is similar. But, you know, maybe we'll see when we get to 1st and 2nd Chronicles. So, but he didn't tear down those high places. Now the rest of the acts of Jotham and all that he did, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the king of Judah? So, in those days the Lord began to send against Judah Rezin, the king of Syria, and Pekah, the son of Remaliah. And Jotham slept with his fathers and was buried with his fathers in the city of David, his father, and Ahaz, his son, reigned in his stead. So, you know, we saw several kings of Israel that did evil in the sight of the Lord. They followed the ways and the sins of Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, who made Israel to sin. And now, how did he make them to sin? By putting those golden calves in strategic places in Israel, so as to prevent anybody from Israel going to Judah, to Jerusalem, to the temple to worship. And, you know, had they been caught going to Jerusalem to worship, no doubt, you know, the king would have had them put to death. But, you know, why would he have all this pinned down for us? What's the significance of that? You know, as I've read this thing and studied and prayed, and, you know, God had these verses pinned down for our admonition, for an example for us, that we would desire more to live our lives as an example of Jesus Christ, not to follow the sinful ways of the world, not to follow down that path that leads to destruction. So that, these men who did evil in the sight of the Lord, you know, as I shared earlier, you know, in several kings it said that they were more evil than any king that ever had been. You know, so they got worse and worse. And, you know, I don't know if they just felt like because they were king, they can just get away with anything. You know, at that time, they were, the kings were really above the law. The law was really not set for them. It was set for everybody else. So, you know, but it is an example unto us. God gave us this example of a way not to live our life. Not to follow the sins of other people. You know, just because, and you know, have you ever had your children or grandchildren tell you, well, everybody's doing it, it should be all right, you know, but I've heard that so many times, it's pitiful. But that's not right. If it's contrary to what God's Word says, then we don't need to follow that path. We don't need to go down that road. We don't need to follow the sins of everybody else. But these folks, they would not give up on it. They kept following the ways of the king of Israel from, you know, Ahaz and Jezebel and their son Jeroboam. You know, they followed those sins right on through. They didn't give up on sinning. Hey, you know what? We're going to follow the way they did. We're going to keep these golden calves up, and you can worship that or don't worship nothing. You know, so it's sad. But I'm thankful God had things like this pinned down so that we'd know. And you know what? There's no halfway to serve God. We're either serving Him or we're not. You know, even with these kings that are listed as doing right in the sight of God, but yet they didn't tear down those high places, the altars to all these idols and things. You know what? We can't hold on to God with one hand and the world with another hand. That doesn't work. You know, they maybe were doing their best, but they were following the example from before them. So, anybody have any kind of discussion on that? Why, you know, why could, you know, the sins of Jeroboam just keep carrying